it wasn't actually that bad. Thank you to our father patrons, Strawbones, Order 4765, and Midnight Gemlord. Now, before we have this breakdown and review of Grudge of Edinburgh, Part 1, please leave your own thoughts on the movie in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, here at that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, do a Patreon down below. It's more for as low as $1 a month. You'll exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the review. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and yeah, I'm shocked. I'm bamboozled, and I'm blown away that Cursed by Light is an overall worse movie than Grudge of Edinburgh. Like, if you can tell from my reactions to the trailers, like, expectations, hopes, dreams, they were just out the window. Like, fundamentally, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, sweet mother of mercy, this is gonna be awful. And I didn't have any excitement for it either, mainly because I was in this weird spot, because I read 4 Nights weekly, obviously. I was like, well, that's obviously nothing really important is going to happen here. Like, it's fundamentally impossible for any plot relevant stuff to happen here, because we have the regular canon series going on right now. I know both Lance and Tristan are indeed alive, and Percival's still up on God's finger, and Gawain is living her best life. So, like, no characters I care about are really going to be in any serious danger or harm, and we know the main conflict, Elizabeth being in danger, just doesn't even matter because we've seen her now in the modern narrative, and she's perfectly fine. Like, it'd be one thing if Elizabeth in 4 Nights was still hidden from us, like, Nakaba kept doing the thing where he kept hiding her face and eyes for some reason, then maybe, just maybe, I would have a little bit of concern for this film. But, like, I think 3 weeks or maybe a month before the film dropped, it was revealed that Elizabeth was just fine. So, like, tension? What tension? None of it. However, regardless of that, the film does still have a lot that I want to talk about. First things first, I'll go to what surprised me the most, the animation. So, the thing is, right, I like 3D animation. I do. Despite how much I complained about it in 2D animated films, I actually do like 3D animation. Modern Disney, well, it does have a little bit of same face syndrome and same style syndrome. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. I love it. It's amazing. Spider-Verse is one of my favorite films just to look at because of how amazing the 3D animation is. 3D animation, beautiful, peak, wonderful. Do I still prefer 2D animation? Yeah, but that's literally just the nostalgia guy in me. Like, there's no real definitive way I could argue which art form is better. Both are extremely difficult in their own unique ways, and they both deserve respect. Anyone who does 3D or 2D animation, hats off to you. You're amazing. But obviously, when it comes to 7 Deadly Sins, it hasn't had the best track record in terms of 3D animation. And of course, the biggest and most recent egregious example before Grudge of Edinburgh itself was Cursed by Light's Supreme Deity. And yeah, it was rough, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure about 3D animation in the show itself, other than Hawkmama, which also kind of looked pretty rough. So essentially, that combined with the trailer and a lot of the models had my standards pretty much at negatives, like abysmally low. So my expectations were also pretty low too. And I will give it credit. I do still believe some of the models are pretty awful, like Elizabeth, Meliodas, heck, what those 3 side characters, what the 2 furries and the giant girl, but in terms of animation, like, outside of art quality, there was pretty good animation in this, from Tristan's full counters, to the motion, to the character movement, the character expression. They actually did a really, really good job. I'm not sure who animated this. Hold on, let me look it up. I don't know. No easy, simple answer popped up, so I'm not going to look that deep into it. But whoever did animate it, whichever studio, nice work, nice work. I mean, not on the models. I still can't get past the models, but at least working with what you had in terms of the models, pretty darn good, pretty darn good. In terms of the character designs, I don't know why Lance took on that form. Like, I get it. He needs a form that he can fly in, since he apparently can't fly in base for one reason or another. It seems a little bit weird, but sure, he can't do that. But, like, did he have to be the weird chunky fairy? Like, I'm not saying the form was poorly animated or anything. And honestly, even the model itself was not bad. Like, straight up, you can tell due to the fact that they knew they were going to be using it a lot. they put a lot of effort into that one model. I just had a flashback to a model I do plan to complain about. But regardless of that, like, it's just a weird design thing that I'm not sure how I feel about. It's just a little bit awkward, a little bit ugly, a little bit stupid. But, you know, it leads to the reveal. Though, ironically enough, now I think about it, I get it. It was only in the movie for like 2 shots, so I get why the model wasn't the best looking. But Lancelot's actual human form model kind of made me want to hurl, because it was such a low quality model. And I know, once again, they weren't going to use it for a long time. So essentially, whichever models appeared the least, that they were not planning to use too much, had lower quality, except for Diane. Diane seemed to have a weirdly good model for a character that just didn't appear outside of a fraction of a scene. I was about to say same with Gother, but Gother actually looked kind of jacked up. And they did Bond and Elaine kind of... You know, there's some... We'll talk about it when we get to it. But the only model that looked like downright egregious, like straight up, like, other than the 2 final villains, I'll admit the 2, like, pseudo commandment, whatever you want to call them. What's his name? Servants. Death Pierce's servants. They looked a little bleh. But the main one, his direct assistant that had that weird closing and open head, like, I'm a full grown man, and that made me cringe. Like, you ever had that feeling when your skin crawls? That's what it made me look. And I guess it's supposed to do that, right? But it was half because the design was a little bit off-putting, and other half because it just looked nasty on like a modeling front. Another model that appears very rarely within the film, so I get it. They didn't optimize it all that well, but still. Put a few more polygons on it. Render it just a bit more, please, for my sanity, so it doesn't haunt my nightmares like it already has been. But overall, the animation, not great. Obviously not Disney tier, not Disney short tier or anything like that. Not even like the first Toy Story, the original Pixar film, as a piece of 3D animation looks much better than this, when this has come out, nearly 30 years after Pixar made the first Toy Story. But for what Seven Deadly Sins was looking like and being animated like as of recent, I will 100% take this. Do I still wish we just had like season 1 and 2 animation? Yeah, obviously. But it seems like Seven Deadly Sins is never getting that treatment again, which is why I am holistically horrified for the season 1 anime of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Because unless Mappa, like the insane overworking anime studio that they are, decides to pick up Four Knights of the Apocalypse, I have no faith in that anime. I'm just gonna stick to the manga. The manga's beautiful. I'm gonna stick with the manga. But with that being the case, overall, I will have to say the animation for the film was fine. It's a solid 5 out of 10. It's passable. I guess 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 is more like a passable thing. You just barely pass. C's get degrees in this case. Where, yeah, it's not the best. I don't necessarily plan to watch it again. And I don't think it was a pleasurable experience to go through it. There's nothing in the film that made me be like, whoa, wow, that's amazing. It was much like, whoa, wow, this is not literal garbage. Which is, you know... Unfortunately, sir, Seven Deadly Sins anime standards, I'll take what I can get. So, enough of the animation. Let's move on to the story. The story is, it's aight. like it's one of the biggest it's aight I've had in a while when it comes to Seven Deadly Sins. Like, I'm very intrigued with the current story of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. I do like the Seven Deadly Sins story, even if I do agree it definitely has its low points. But for this one, it kind of just feels like it feels like filler. like that's I know that's a bad thing to say, but Death Pierce being our main villain, like, Am I supposed to care? Like, am I supposed to feel bad? Like, admittedly, it takes an interesting concept, right? It takes the idea of Death Pierce building his own human kingdom, which was established at the end of Seven Deadly Sins, and does something with it. But I'll admit, I would have greatly preferred if we had seen that in the actual manga. Kind of the same thing with the Supreme Deity in Cursed by Light. Like, that was such an interesting concept and an interesting character to properly use, instead of shoving it into a 2-part 3D animated film that, I don't know. I'm not sure how much of the fandom is going to actually go and watch it, because shoot, even I knew it came out. I knew. And I still didn't make it a top priority. Like, straight up, I was like, you know what? Let me give it a couple days. maybe I'll warm up to it. But like on a story front, it does what it does fine enough, but I feel like it would have been better served as an actual plot point for the sequel series, considering it could essentially just be practice for our 4 Knights. I think that's what it's supposed to be, right? This is baby Camelot, Chaos Staff and all, which obviously makes me believe that Arthur's going to step in some way in part 2. There's going to be revealed that Merlin is related to the assistant or something like that, in the way that they're using and abusing the other creatures and species. But even with that being the case, it's kind of just like, it's aight. Like, there's nothing that the series can't do with this that the movie can. Right? Like, on a writing front, I think it'd be much better to have this more fleshed out and established and built up better than in a movie, even if it is a 2-parter. And the thing is, with this being the case, it's not like the movie even gives you anything that the series hasn't already given us in terms of 4 Knights. Like, maybe if this movie came out before 4 Knights got serialized, or at best, before we got the Lance reveal. But even then, I feel like, does the movie really ruin the Lance reveal? I guess not, because he's not Sid in this movie. So you'd still, I think you could even do it post-Lance reveal, where people just don't know what Lance looks like. Because, like, Lance, reasonably, his outfit reveal wasn't the big part of the Sin reveal. It was mainly just Lance himself. So I think it's fine. Before introducing Tristan, and before getting to his demonic stuff, I think that would have been the best point to release this movie. Because, like, oh no, Lance lost to Tristan and had a scar on him because Tristan uses demon powers. Sure, it was cool to see the actual fight on screen and see their bond when they were younger, but at the same time, that could have been inferred easily, and I would have preferred seeing their fight in the manga anyway. And with that being the case, Tristan has trouble controlling his demon powers, something already established, arguably to a better degree, in the manga. Tristan can only heal physical wounds and sucks with other stuff. Already revealed in the manga. Like, the manga kind of already does everything. Like, this movie provides nothing on the front other than getting rid of Death Pierce, which is what the same problem that Cursed by Light had on a story front. Because it didn't do anything other than get rid of the Supreme Deity, which was essentially just a loose end from the end of the 7 Deadly Sins series, which is the same thing that Death Pierce was. Like, I'm not sure. Using the movies to get rid of these very interesting plot points that could come around in the sequel series is a mixed bag. And this one, I gotta say, is probably just, like, a mistake. Like, straight up, this should have been saved for 4 Knights, especially considering how, like, not fodder, but, like, what's the word I'm looking for? At least how weak our cast is right now. Having this whole little mini Camelot before they take on real Camelot would have been nice, but this conflict is going to be handled, I believe, like, 3 years early, 3 years before 4 Knights, so it's kind of just too late now. And overall, aside from the... it's gonna sound weird, the story being tensionless, I also feel like the plot just doesn't need to happen. Like, obviously, it would be so much easier if Meliodas just boom, flew over to where Death Pierce was, landed, and was like, hey, buddy, you have my wife. Let me show you what happened to the last person who had my wife. But that's just the problem you're going to have in general with 4 Knights. As long as, not just 4 Knights in general, but any content that takes place post original series where we have multiple characters who could instantly solve this problem in a flash of a second, yeah, it's going to be tensionless in that way too. So I really can't help it. However, in terms of what it does as a narrative for getting our characters together, having character conflict, it works. It works definitely for a nice little movie plot. Obviously, if you don't feel like using Death Pierce as a proper antagonist in your sequel series, using him as this middle ground to bridge between the original series and the new series, introducing concepts like chaos staffs, utilizing the different races and prejudice and stuff like that, Death Pierce is going to be a little bit crazy because the chaos powers literally, at least if you had to ask me, Death Pierce is literally just Arthur Mini. Arthur Light. The Arthur at home is all Death Pierce is in this movie, and he sort of facilitates the plot in that way. The only way he's different than Arthur is that Arthur hasn't casted like a curse on Elizabeth or anything like that. But in terms of being mean to the other races, being a terrible individual to other humans who like the other races, wanting to get rid of and destroy the 7 Deadly Sins and their children, yeah, all that is just Arthur Light. So overall, I think the plot is kind of mediocre, but that's only because what it is. Like, you can't, at least to me, I can't expect much like serious plot out of half of what's probably going to be like a sub 2 hour movie. I don't know. I just don't think Nakaba has the time to set up and develop stuff in an interesting manner for that. And I do think the story is kind of fillerish. Like, a majority of it is just our cast not communicating. Like, as long as Tristan could talk to his dad, the demon thing wouldn't be a problem. Like, it just straight up wouldn't. I don't think it would be. If Tristan and Lancelot could communicate normally, the whole mystery of who's this strong fairy dude just wouldn't be an issue, obviously. If Tristan told Meliodas what the problem was, where he was heading, and who put Elizabeth under a spell, like I mentioned before, he could break the entire plot over his knee, and the problem wouldn't be a problem. But obviously, you gotta have plot, you gotta have things here and there. So it'd be like that, wouldn't be like that sometimes. But you know, enough plot. I've been being kind of mean to it. If I had to give the plot like a rating, it sort of falls under the animation and the same thing, where it's passable, right? It gets the job done. What it serves as like a prelude to Arthur in Four Knights, yeah, it works. Don't get me wrong. And it introduces things we already got introduced to in Four Knights, which is why I still don't get this movie's release time. Maybe it just simply couldn't be released earlier because it just wasn't in production in quick enough time. But at least from like Nakaba's standpoint, I don't get why you would release this movie now, because it's like all of it just is pretty much irrelevant considering what we have in the manga. But regardless, I give the plot another 6 out of 10. Like, it's passable, it gets the job done, and it's a nice little filler movie plot that takes aspects of something that could have been interesting in the main story, but if we had to put it somewhere, I'm glad it gets mentioned here at all instead of never. And the Death Pierce plot is just that. Now, let's move on to the characters. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Tristan is fine. it's like a lot of the movie. I think he's fine. Admittedly, the whole idea that he doesn't want to talk to his dad about demon powers and like how scary they are, even though his dad literally is the most demon guy to ever demon. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. Though admittedly, I do get it, and I think that's where the movie does a good job with Tristan. It explains why he's so scared of it, right? Like, due to... Let me save that for another video. I was about to go into a whole rant about how Tristan's biology is like simultaneously the best thing that could ever happen to him, yet the worst thing that could ever happen to him. And we see that by how he describes it. But with that being the case, it makes sense, right? Like, he harmed his best friend because he lost control of himself. Like, that's all it is. Word for word, bar for bar. Bro just lost control and was like, and like, obviously it's gotta be scary, right? Like, imagine you... This is going to sound weird. Imagine your Saiyan blood gets pumping, and bada bing, bada boom, you get into a fight against one of your homies, and you beat the life out of them, you knock one of their teeth loose permanently, and you're just like, oh, snap. And imagine this, you're 12, or like however old he was. I forget how old he was exactly in that fight, but regardless, bro was super duper young. Actually, nah, he was 10. Like, bro was a whole 10-year-old when that happened. Because that's before Lance went and got the Lady of the Light training, which is why Tristan could even damage him in the first place. So, obviously, it got tragic, new Paddock. And with that being the case, that unaddressed trauma, literally going unaddressed for years upon years upon years, would build up this resentment towards his other half. And seeing how he struggles with it and tries to get better and better with his light side to compensate for that mistake is really, really good. I actually do like that part of the narrative. So I do, Tristan is better than that. I thought I was kind of just getting on him because for a majority of the middle part of the narrative, it's like he kind of reverts in terms of character seriousness, I suppose. Like, he goes from, this is a quest to save my mama, I'm gonna do anything to do this because I need to prove myself worthy as a holy knight, this is what I can do, I can help, to like being dumb and showboaty. And I get it, this is like his first real world mission, but the sudden tone shift from this like serious, reflective, introspective character who's scared of his own internal feelings and how his body reacts to certain scenarios to I'm a hero. Yeah, full counter. Like, it's neat. It's fine enough, but I feel like the tone shift is too drastic. Especially considering when the demon plot procs up again at the very end, it contrasts everything. Like, that whole middle part of the movie kind of just goes unaddressed. And I get it, because we have the straight man in Lance throughout the entire film. He's supposed to be the straight man, and thus we can't have two straight men. We can't have two straight... I mean, they are technically two straight men. Well, you never know. You never know. The fandom goes crazy. But regardless of that being the case, Tristan fills the role he's meant to fill. But I think by filling the role he's meant to fill, it kind of derails the character that Nakamura was trying to write in the beginning and then again at the end, which makes it just like a really awkward tale to go with, at least in my opinion. I think it could have been handled better, but Tristan still is pretty good for the demon plot and stuff like that. Two, him having full counter, I like it a lot. He doesn't use it in the main narrative just yet, and I wonder if he has access to the physical variant, or if that literally was just a thing that Gother made up for Mael's new persona Estarossa to have, and just no one actually has it. Because no one has used it yet, and we don't see him use it on any physicals anyway, so who knows, maybe just as the magical variant. But it'd be cool if he had both, parallel the light and dark thing, and obviously he's the natural Estarossa Mael combo, so it'd be cool if he had both, but him having full counter is a nice thing. Lance in the film, once again, he's just forced to play the straight man, and he has very little of it. One of my favorite things about Lance from 4 Nights so far is his playful teasing side, his nice manipulating side. But obviously you can tell, since he's so recently out of the world beyond, as Jericho called it, he's very, very serious. He's very, very, once again, he's the straight man. He's just no nonsense, all that. The only time we get some of the hints of that playful, teasing, manipulating side of him is right at the very end, where he flexes on Tristan and reminds us why he's the main character, and Tristan was just a side attraction. But I don't know, that's the thing. Without that extra side to his character, he kind of just becomes boring cool man, and that sucks because I love Lance. Lance is cool because Lance is cool, not just tough guy. But unfortunately, because that's the thing, the roles they're forced to play when it's just the two of them kind of remove any interesting aspects. Because I'll say middle of the story Percy, that's what I was gonna get to. Middle of the story Tristan, where he's bumbling around and just trying to do cool stuff and complaining, hey, you aren't timing your attacks properly, and he's doing a bunch of dumb stuff, feels like Percival and Gawain. It feels like he's filling in that role. And because of that, Tristan isn't allowed to play any of the straight man, because Lance has to play the entire straight man to Tristan's non-straight man. And thusly, I can definitely see why the 4 Nights is a group that needs to group. Because all their personalities sort of balance each other out. Whereas in the film, just due to the roles they have to play and the fact that Lance isn't allowed to really be Lance for the first half of the film, not even the first half, a majority of the film, Lance isn't allowed to be Lance. We kind of don't get the good stuff. For the side characters, the fairy, the giant, and the other fairy, I mean, they're there. I don't care. It's fine that they were traveling along. The only thing I liked is that Lance directly admitted to using them as bait. That's literally the only thing I care about. The fact that Lance was like, oh yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond all means and reason, I was perfectly willing to get you guys captured. And of course, Lance is more than powerful enough to deal with it. Once again, Lance already at this point should have the World Beyond amps, and thusly, he should be perfectly fine to go crazy and go stupid on Death Pierce in the next part. But still, with that being the case, it's kind of whack. It's kind of whack that he thinks that he needs to use bait instead of just going in there and solving the problem himself. But of course, can't have a movie if Lance just solves the problem himself. Can't have a series if Lance just solves the problem himself. That's why he's a narrative issue. But regardless of that, the 3 side characters, they're whatever. They're fine. Meliodas in this film, I mean, he's just Mel. Straight up, he is just Mel. And that's perfectly fine. I don't know. He doesn't necessarily bring any crazy stuff to the table. He doesn't take away anything from the film. He's just there. Elizabeth, once again, I do think Nakaba is doing more character work with Elizabeth in this movie and the sequel series than he did with Elizabeth in the entire original series, which is crazy. Elizabeth being a supportive mother and trying to understand and empathize with Tristan and try to guide him down the right path. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I just don't know what caused Nakaba to be like, I don't care. I stopped. I just something snapped. Something broke inside of me. Something happened with Nakaba where he's like, you know what? After the entire original series, not writing this character, I'm finally going to write her. And that's great. Don't get me wrong. I love Elizabeth in this movie, and I love her in 4 Nights because she's just done good, which is more than I can say for her original self. Then The Sins kind of get notified in this film, but they're only cameos, like purely just cameos. They don't send any help. They don't have any reaction to their people being kidnapped or anything like that. Like, none of that happens in this film, which, you know, once again, I get it. This is a Seven Deadly Sins story in location, mostly. It's obviously mainly their kids' story, which is why we don't see them. But another thing I have to get into, why? Like, Nakaba, do you just not have them designed yet? Like, I get it. Making 3D models for the kids probably would have been too annoying, and we have not seen them in the manga, so it's not even like the animators could have just gone to the manga and be like, here are King and Diane's children. But this movie confirms that King and Diane, they've been getting busy with it, because they do not just have they have kids. Like, Diane straight up asked the others, hey, guys, my children, have you seen them? And Nakaba just refuses to show us them. Like, I get it, Nakaba, King and Diane are not your favorite characters, I know, but could we at least see their children, their offspring, mainly because I want to know how it happened. Like, are they giants? Are they fairies? How old are they? They don't even speak in the movie. Like, they don't even get voices. We don't even know if they're male, female, whatever. We just know they're cute. I don't know. It's very interesting how Nakaba is continuing to gatekeep us from them. Of all things, right? Like, it's mainly just for the King and Diane fans, all 5 of us out there. Well, no. A lot of people like King. It's for all the King and Diane fans that are just like, hey, Nakaba, can we see the kids? And Nakaba's just specifically like, no, never. And unfortunately, because of the way the narrative is set up, the kids can't even be useful in 4 Nights because there's literally no human in them. They ain't got to drop a human in them. So they're kind of just stuck out of luck. So this would have been the best time to show them. At least show them kidnapped or something. I don't know. We just don't get that. Gother, interestingly enough, he's not on his demon journey yet. At least seemingly. So apparently him being a demon protector is pretty darn recent, which I'm not sure if that adds or detracts from his character. Like, I kind of would have preferred if he had just been doing that and maybe he was visiting the castle, but that's not the vibes I get from this. I feel like he's just been hanging around and wandering about, so he becomes a demon helper later. Not sure how I feel about that. Bon and Elaine, they're Bon and Elaine. Like, I love Bon, do not like Elaine. Do not like Elaine, so seeing them laid up in bed and then Bon getting up and doing nothing, whatever. Overall, the characters, Death Pierce being nuts and having a chaos staff, it's cool. It's fine. Like, admittedly, I wish he was a little bit more nuanced. Like, seeing him deal with the fact that, yeah, humans, by humans, for humans, all humans isn't the cleanest of endeavors, and like he was abandoned by a lot of his fellow humans. Like, I wish we got more of that, but he's mainly just like, haha, I am evil villain man, and that's fine. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing ever, but in the same vein, it's not the best thing ever. I feel like you could definitely go down a very interesting path with Death Pierce instead of just making him evil McEvil. Even Arthur, who in this current story is pretty much evil McEvil, still has a personality. Like, he's still lighthearted, fun, a little bit crazy. Meanwhile, Death Pierce kind of just got reduced to, ooh, crazy evil man who does not like the other races. Don't be like Death Pierce, kids, because Death Pierce is evil. That's kind of all we get here. And it's alright. Once again, I feel like the whole thing about this movie is that it's alright. It doesn't do anything too crazy. It gets the job done animation, story, and character-wise, and it ties up and introduces and wraps up some loose ends from the previous series. And it doesn't necessarily add anything to the current series of 4 Nights, because everything that's revealed in this movie doesn't matter for the most part, because it's either already been introduced or just doesn't matter by the time of the modern 4 Nights narrative. But hey, I can't knock its hustle, and it's great to see our characters in any form more. And the extra content is good content. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think about the film in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. You see the notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do Patreon down below is more for as low as $1 a month. Exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.